What's going on, you guys? The MCU is back, and full disclosure, I was not looking forward to Phase 4 of the MCU because for me, the entire thing wrapped quite nicely with Endgame. Tony Stark, spoiler alert, died. Captain America, spoiler alert, retired, and Natasha Romanoff died. I think they wrapped it quite beautifully, and I was done with it. I was like, yeah, Tony's dead. Cap is basically dead. Natasha is dead. Hawkeye returned to his family. Thor is fat now. And who else do we got? Well, the Hulk. The Hulk is now a smart green rage monster. Well, no longer a rage monster, but he's smart now. Like he got rid of his Hulk problem. And I was like, why are we continuing this exactly? We got a nice ending, and not every franchise can say this about itself. But yeah, of course, it had to continue. So I was like, well, let's just check it out. Let's see what happens. And then they announced their latest slate of MCU movies, and most of them seemed boring to me. Like, I couldn't care less about Captain Marvel 2. Then a lot of our main characters would get their little spin-offs, like She-Hulk. It's not really the Hulk, but it's She-Hulk. Iron Man would get two spin-offs in terms of Armor Wars and Ironheart. And I was like, again, why should I care about these characters? I don't know. But there was one trailer that immediately blew me away, and that was WandaVision, because WandaVision actually looked like something new, something completely new in terms of genre, in terms of mixing different styles, and I was like, that looks interesting. And I've always been a fan of Paul Bettany as the Vision. I've always been a huge fan of Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff, because these two characters always, I don't know, I always had a thing for them, and I always loved them. I think back when they were introduced in Age of Ultron, I already fell in love with them, and they continued to amaze me in Civil War and in Infinity War. I love these two characters. Only thing I hated was that they weren't using them properly, because they always had way too few scenes together and way too few scenes in general. Their screen time always got cut short in order to make room for the big Avengers, for the main cast. And I'm like, yeah, but I'd like to see their story. And now we got it, and it's fascinating. So yeah, this is gonna be a spoiler-heavy review. I've watched every episode at least 2 times, I think even 3 times. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive right into the show that's called WandaVision. The show kicks off and immediately you're like, what? We got the 4:3 aspect ratio and an old 50s sitcom starring Wanda Maximoff and the Vision. And yeah, you're hearing me right. It says starring Wanda Maximoff and the Vision. They're now a sitcom couple in a Dick Van Dyke style sitcom. And I was like, that's interesting. That is super cool. I knew basically what was going on because I am familiar with the comic books and with Wanda Maximoff as a character. But still, I was interested. I was engaged. And right at the gate, this did something for me because I grew up with sitcoms. Like, I've seen all types of sitcoms throughout the years, the old black and white stuff, stuff from the 80s, Family Matters, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Nanny, Full House, and of course, the modern day comedy, which is without background laughter, without canned laughter, like Malcolm in the Middle, The Office, Modern Family. I know all this stuff by heart. And I was interested because this show promised me the evolution of sitcoms meets Marvel epic. And that's basically what it is. So the first episode was actually shot in front of a live studio audience. I think that's even the name of the episode. And it's awesome. It's awesome. They really captured the style, the feel, and the tone of the Dick Van Dyke Show / The Honeymooners. Wanda and Vision have terrific chemistry. Like, even their romantic dynamic is quite touching and so refreshing and so whimsical and beautiful. Where I was like, wow, this is cheesy, but I love it. And both of the actors, they bring their A game.
My wife and her flying saucers.
My husband and his indestructible head.
Again, Elizabeth Olsen, I'll get to her in a minute, but she nails basically every single role that she had to play in this show, and she played several roles. But yeah, I love her as the housewife in the first episode, and I love Vision, that android, as your sitcom husband. That's hilarious. So the first episode is basically just that. It's a black and white sitcom. There's a nosy neighbor played by Catherine Hahn, who also is terrific. Her timing is on point, and it's basically a typical shenanigans story. Vision's boss and his wife come over for dinner, and they got everything mixed up because Wanda thought that she had to prepare for their anniversary. So it seems like your average sitcom, but the cool thing is there are constantly tiny bits and pieces that take you out of it. That make you realize, yeah, this is still part of the MCU, and we acknowledge that something is wrong here. For example, these episodes always are interrupted by a fake commercial. The first commercial is a Stark Industry toaster that is very reminiscent of the Stark shell that killed Wanda's parents. We even hear the beeping noise of a typical shell, like beep, beep, beep. It's almost eerie. And the second hint we get in the first episode is when the boss, Vision's boss, is choking on something, and it's like his wife is on repeat. She keeps on repeating the same sentence over and over and over again. Stop it, stop it, stop it. It's almost like something out of a horror movie. And the funny thing is, we have this whimsical sitcom atmosphere to be interrupted by possibly the darkest imagery that we've ever seen in the MCU, and that's what makes it so special. So right out the gate, the first episode, loved it. I love the fact that the sitcom thing wasn't just a gimmick, but that they fully committed to it, and it ends on a cliffhanger. They zoom out. The aspect ratio now is quite cinematic and widescreen. And we see that someone is watching them. Someone is watching Wanda and Vision on television. Someone is watching the show just like we do. So I love that meta humor and meta moment. So it ends on a cliffhanger. And the second episode is a 1960s black and white style comedy. And again, the plot was so charming. It's like Wanda and Vision, they're still a couple, even though it's only been a day, but it's also been 10 years within this weird WandaVision realm. And they have to impress the neighborhood by pulling off a magic show, which is amazing because you have two magical characters that are actually capable of real magic, but they have to pretend like it's fake magic. And that alone is a great concept. And again, in this episode, Paul Bettany especially shined because Vision was kind of drunk because he swallowed a chewing gum, which was hilarious. But even that episode had a couple really chilling and eerie moments, like Wanda stumbles upon this drone, it looks like a toy helicopter inside of her bushes, and it's in color, while the rest of the episode is black and white. And she's like, what the hell is going on here? And we're like, what the hell is going on here? And by the end of the episode, there's this guy in a beekeeper's suit who looks at her all creepy, and she's just like, no, and she rewinds the show. So this was the first clue that we're like, well, maybe she's in charge of everything here. Then also features a radio that is trying to contact Wanda, talking to her. Who's doing that to you? Because apparently there are people in the outside world trying to reach out to Wanda, thinking that she's being held captive. And that brings me to episode 3, Now in Color. I think that was the title. It's basically an episode of the Brady Bunch. Like, the first episode was the Dick Van Dyke Show. The second episode was an episode of Bewitched. And the third episode was Now in Color. And they nailed the 70s style so much. It's insane. Like, the vibrant colors, the physical acting. Like, Elizabeth Olsen is just terrific. She's a goddess. Like, I always liked her. I didn't know that she was able to pull all these different styles off, and she does it so effortlessly. Like, she gives birth in this episode. Yeah, all of a sudden she's pregnant, and like 9 months pregnant, and she gives birth to twins. And this is where the show really gets interesting in terms of mythology, because that was the third episode and we still had no clue what was going on. We just knew, well, they're trapped in a sitcom scenario. The scenario keeps on changing, and it's basically moving throughout different decades and sitcom styles and tropes. But this time around, we got a little sense of what was actually happening, what was actually going on. Like, there are these neighbors that seem like NPCs, like non-player characters in video games, trapped in this weird world, trying to signal to Vision that they're hostages, basically. And then there's this girl that was introduced in episode 2 called Geraldine. She's all funky and cool, but once she helps Wanda deliver the kids, and she asks her if how cool it is that she just gave birth to twins, Wanda's like, yeah, I was once a twin. And even her accent is back, because remember, she's from Sokovia. And that is when Geraldine has like a moment of reckoning where she's like, what the hell? Like, yeah, I know. Your brother was killed by Ultron. And you're like, whoa, that's the first legit reference to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know there have been Easter eggs all the time. Like, for example, the second commercial break was an ad for Strucker Hydra watches, and Baron von Strucker was the one that experimented on Wanda in Captain America the Winter Soldier and the beginning of Age of Ultron. But that was the first time characters within the show made references to the continuity of the films. And by the way, in the second episode, that was something that I didn't even catch the first time watching it. But if you look at the wall within Wanda's apartment, it just looks like the building in Sokovia where she was held hidden by Hydra in order to be used as a weapon against the Avengers. I thought that was cool. Remember when Iron Man flew against the invisible shield and was like, shit, and Captain America was all like, language? That's basically that building. I was like, that's super interesting. I love the nuances of it all.
Well, I think we handled that well.
Yes, I must say I'm rather proud of myself.
Wanda reacts in a quite hostile way towards Geraldine and basically kicks her out of this world, whatever it is, and then enter episode 4. Episode 4 was basically the behind the scenes, and episode 4 was the episode that the viewers were craving, because it kicks off right after the blip. Remember, like, people were snapped out of existence by Thanos? And then they came back when Tony snapped and sacrificed his life. So it kicks off with Monica Rambeau. Yeah, that's the little girl from Captain Marvel. That is who Geraldine actually is. She's being reassembled out of nothing, out of dust, at a hospital, because her mom, Maria Rambeau, who we were introduced to in Captain Marvel, she actually suffered from cancer, and she finds out that she's been gone for 5 years and her mother is dead, and there is basically panic and chaos everywhere. I loved it so much. Like, that was handled so well. Like, I hated the way Spider-Man Far From Home handled the blip and the snap. They just turned it into a big joke. WandaVision didn't do that. We saw it from the perspective of people coming back and people reacting to people coming back, and how chaotic, how terrifying, and how heart-wrenching it actually is. I mean, Monica had to come to terms with the fact that she's been MIA for 5 years and that her mother is now gone. I mean, that is tragic. And then we move forward. Turns out she actually works for a secret organization known as SWORD, who are very much like S.H.I.E.L.D., very shady, mysterious, but they seem to be the good guys. And they're also working on weapons and, again, defenses in case something out of space attacks us again. So we understand where they're coming from. And her mom, Monica's mom, was basically the founder of SWORD, and now she enlists and she wants to be part of the mission and the action. And the new director tells her, yeah, she's grounded, she's not going into space, but she can help out with local missions. So she is given a case, a missing person case. She's supposed to help out the FBI, and boom, who is brought back? Jimmy Woo, who was introduced in Ant-Man and the Wasp, played by Randall Park. Again, he is hilarious, great. I love that they brought his character back, and he even perfected his magic tricks, like his card tricks that Scott Lang taught him. I love that little Easter egg. I love all these little nuances. Like, the show has a clear vision. Like, every single episode was directed by, I think his name is Matt Shakman, is that his name? But he directed every single episode. You could tell that there is a continuity, there is a unique vision for this show, which is great. So the two of them team up and travel to New Jersey Westview, the city where WandaVision takes place. And it seems like the entire town has gone missing. So Monica investigates, sends in a drone that's actually the helicopter that Wanda found in episode 2, and she actually gets sucked into this world. So the entire behind the scenes episode that's called We Interrupt This Program is a flashback scene and a POV episode. Like, we see the first 3 episodes, but from another perspective, from the perspective of the outside world. So Sword is trying to get her back, to get Monica back, and they stumble upon this sitcom, and they think Wanda is being held captive. And Vision, they don't even know how he's alive, because remember, Vision got murdered by Thanos. He didn't get snapped. He just lost his life and lost the Infinity Stone. And so yeah, no one knows what's going on, but they start to realize that a lot of people that appear on the show have been MIA for quite a while, and they found out their real identities, which is really interesting. And yeah, then we basically cut to the finale of episode 3 again. Wanda threatening Monica Rambeau and kicking her out of her little universe. And Monica coming to the conclusion that it's all Wanda. Wanda is behind everything. Like, that episode was great. It was done so well because I was so in love with the concept of these different sitcoms with Wanda and Vision. And I love these two characters so much and their dynamics so much and the fact that they step it up every single episode. But now we have an episode with a character that was a little child in Captain Marvel, and 2 supporting characters from other Marvel films, Jimmy Woo being one of them, and Darcy Lewis, played by Kat Dennings, who they brought back. And these 3 teaming up, sort of like the X-Files, in order to find out what is going on. I love that concept so much. So funny. It really focused on these 3 characters and not Wanda and Vision, and I still enjoyed the shit out of that episode. And then we enter episode 5, which is probably my favorite episode of the entire show, called On a Very Special Episode. And the cool thing is now it switches back. Ever since that episode, it started to switch back and forth between the sitcom world and the real MCU world. Because now we've gone full 80s, early 90s with a Family Ties / Full House episode, which is funny in and of itself because Elizabeth Olsen is the younger sister of the Olsen twins, who were a big part of Full House. I love all these little nuances and Easter eggs for sitcom lovers and MCU lovers. That is just really cool. And in the episode, the cool thing is Vision is starting to realize that something's up. Like, he realizes that his wife is acting all weird and their kids are starting to grow exponentially. Like, they were born after Wanda just happened to be 9 months pregnant, and then they turned 5, like, within a couple seconds. And then by the end of the episode, they're already 10 years old, which is really, really interesting. And the episode basically deals with the kids finding a dog, and the parents, Wanda and Vision, are uneasy whether or not they should allow the kids to have the dog, and the dog runs off and dies. And the kids are begging their mom to bring it back to life. She's like, no, in a very Full House-like, teachable moment, no, you cannot cheat death. It's not right. You have to accept, and mourning and loss is part of life. Which is funny because at that point we know that she somehow brought Vision back, because that's what director Dick told us. He told us that Wanda infiltrated the Sword building and stole the Vision's body, brought it into her little dimension, and revived it. And that is what we're being told. So we're like, wow. And he's trying to straight up kill her. He's like, yeah, she's taking all these people hostage. Like, I'm going to take her out. She sends in a drone, which was fucking incredible. And Vision, on the other hand, starts to unplug a few people, a few sitcom characters. And they're like, oh my God, she's in my head. She's torturing me. And we're like, wow, Wanda, what are you doing to these people? And she actually steps outside of the hex. It's what Darcy started to call this dimension. And boom, she's back to being Wanda like we know her from the movies, with the long leather coat, with her accent back, and she rocks it, man. And she actually threatens the entire military section of the Sword organization in a very Magneto-like scene. She even turns their guns on him and tells him, "Stay away from my home. This is my final warning." Blah. It's like, wow, is Wanda gonna be the villain of the show. Like it was so interesting. And then it ended on a massive cliffhanger because Vision confronted her. It's like, stop lying to me. What's outside of Westview? I need to know. I need to know. And they actually, I thought that there was going to be a straight up fight between husband and wife within this Full House scenario, which would have been great, but that was not the case. She's just like, I don't know how it happened, but it did happen. And I'm just glad that I have you and that I have my children and this is our life now. And he almost accepts it. However, then someone's at the door and she opens it and it's her brother Pietro, only not really. It's Peter Maximoff from the X-Men franchise. That's right. Evan Peters was cast to play Quicksilver on this show, which was really clever, but I'll get to that later. And at the moment it happened, I was in awe. I was loving it because I always wanted to see the multiverse unfold, and I always wanted to see Evan Peters and Elizabeth Olsen interact with one another, and that was like the only way to do it. I was like, yeah, so she obviously tapped into the multiverse by creating her own reality where Vision is still alive, and this is why Evan Peters pops up now as Quicksilver. I was like, this is great. This is really amazing, great storytelling. Which brings me to the next episode, which was episode 6. I think it was called All New Halloween Spooktacular, which was the Halloween special. That episode is great. That episode is great because it moved away from traditional sitcoms and went into the early 2000s. So it was basically a love letter to Malcolm in the Middle. That was the comedy style, like Malcolm in the Middle and Scrubs. Even the cutaway jokes, like, you know, when JD is having a thought, he's like, That's basically what Wanda did in that episode. Loved it. And the cool thing is it was a Halloween special, so they were celebrating Halloween. And Wanda actually put on her old school Scarlet Witch costume, the one from the comic books. She looked great in it. And Vision dressed up as his comic book alter ego. But they found a way to make it work. Like Wanda called her costume a Sokovian fortune teller, and Vision called his costume a Mexican wrestler. And Quicksilver even dresses up as the comic book Quicksilver, which is cool. And the kids, Wiccan and Speed, like Billy and Tommy, but in the comic books they do exist as Wiccan and Speed. They even get their respective costumes. I loved that so much. And again, that episode was really important for both, for the sitcom aspect, but also the overall mythology and the characters, because Wanda got to spend some time with her brother, who questioned her throughout the entire episode, like, how did you do this? What's going on here? While Vision, on the other hand, was on his path of self-discovery. Like, he found some people that were basically trapped in their own movements. He's like, oh my god, it's like they're all slaves here. And he even found Agnes again, who was dressed up as a witch. Subtle foreshadowing there. And she even asked him, how are you alive? You're an Avenger. And he doesn't even know what the Avengers are. He doesn't remember his life prior to the Hex. So he just plucked her back in because he saw that she was suffering. And he was trying to leave the Hex. And that was one of the most interesting scenes, because from the moment he did, he basically crumbled apart, because it turns out that he needs this place. And that brings me to another great commercial break, because the one in episode 5, the Full House episode, was great, where we basically got an advertisement for Bounty paper towels, but it was called Lagos, for when you make a mess but you didn't intend to, which was a clear jab at Civil War, when Wanda accidentally killed a bunch of civilians at the beginning of Captain America Civil War. But this commercial in particular in episode 6 was great because it was animated, and it was about a little boy stranded on an island, and then there was this cool shark that offered him like a pudding or a yogurt called Yo Magic. And the little boy tried to open it, but couldn't get it done, so he basically starved to death and became a skeleton. It was super dark. And that was a metaphor, once again, but this time not for Wanda, but for Vision, because Vision without Wanda's power is dead. So I love that aspect. And how did Wanda react to that? Because her boy felt Vision outside the Hex, told her that. And she just expanded the Hex and saved them once again while turning a bunch of SWORD agents to her personal slaves. She added more to her collection. Which brings me to episode 7, called Breaking the Fourth Wall. Now, that was the Office slash Modern Family episode, where they were constantly breaking the fourth wall, talking with us in a mockumentary style sitcom, which was great. Like, again, I can't praise Elizabeth Olsen enough on for her work on this show. She can be super dramatic, super badass, super scary, like when she left the Hex, but she also nails every single aspect of the comedy style that they were going for. Like, she was great in the Malcolm episode, but she was also amazing in the early black and white episode, the 70s. She rocked that. She does a lot of physical acting, a lot of facial acting. Her expressions are amazing. And what she does with the Modern Family thing, even what she does with her voice, like, she really emulates Julie Bowen's character, which is fantastic. And that episode basically pinned Darcy and Vision together. Darcy filled him in on everything. Like, he used to be an Avenger, he got killed twice, and Wanda loves him. But yeah, he's trying to come home, but Wanda won't let him. And she lets her nosy neighbor, Agnes, that has been a blast throughout the entire season, throughout the entire series. Catherine Hahn killed it as the nosy neighbor. That's just an amazing character. She took care of her kids, and turns out once Wanda started to look for her kids, that Agnes is not who we thought she was. She's actually a witch called Agatha Harkness, and this is where she gets her own sitcom intro, very much Addams Family style. Agatha all along, which is great, which also told us that she conjured the fake Pietro. She's been messing up the magic show in episode 2, and she killed Sparky, which is messed up. And while all that is happening, Monica Rambeau's molecular structure is starting to change because she entered the Hex twice. So now she basically becomes a superhero, able to manipulate energy. So she faces off against Wanda, trying to bring her back to the light side of the Force, but Agatha is not having it. And which brings me to episode 8, Previously On. And that is the most dramatic, most profound episode of the entire show, because this really tells us what's been going on for real. Kicks off with a flashback of Agatha, like back when she was a witch. Her own covenant tried to not burn her at a stake, but burn her with magic at a stake. And she killed them all. She wiped them out because she started to experiment with dark magics, the dark arts, and yeah. But then we catch up with Wanda, and Agatha is after her powers. She wants to know how she did it, how she created this fake world, how she's controlling everyone. And she basically revisits key moments from Wanda's past. It starts off in Sokovia when she was a kid, and we find out, back when Sokovia was like a war zone, her parents calmed her down by showing her sitcoms. So she grew up with sitcoms. This is why she has such an affinity for them. We also see how she lost her parents to a Stark bomb and a second Stark bomb not going off. And this is when we learn Wanda had her powers all along, just like in the comic books. It's just like the Infinity Stone that she was blasted with increased these powers. And that was the second flashback when she was with Hydra. So you see that all these flashbacks tie in with the commercials that we saw before. And while she was blasted with that, she got a vision of the Scarlet Witch persona that we know from the comic books. That was super interesting. And then we see the first time she started to flirt with Vision, which was another heartwarming scene. And the two of them watching Malcolm in the Middle together, which makes so much sense that they chose this show for the Halloween episode. And it basically ended with her actually visiting the SWORD facility, the headquarters, and turns out she did not actually steal his body. They were using his body in order to get it back online because they want to weaponize the Vision. She just had to see him, her lover, being operated on and him being dead. She even touched his head. She's like, I can't feel it anymore. That was heartbreaking. And then she found out that he actually bought her a house. So she went to Westview where she only found that big lot. And when she saw that and the message that he left her, she just exploded, basically, creating this hex and creating her very own vision out of the Infinity Stone inside of her. So yeah, this Vision has the personality of the old Vision without the memories of the old Vision, and this is this is how it all came to be. And I love that episode so much. It was touching. It was almost Logan level in terms of quality character writing. I absolutely adored it, and especially again Elizabeth Olsen. She gave a powerhouse, tragic, dramatic performance, and I thought I just heard something, but no. She was incredible, absolutely incredible. And Agatha Harkness was also a great villain in that episode, which brings me to the final one, because there was a post-credit sequence. Turns out, not Hydra, Sword used the drone that Wanda threw at their feet in order to revive Vision's actual body, but he's all pale now, all white now. Which leads me to the final episode. The final episode was very conventional, actually. It was basically a showdown between Wanda and the witch Agatha, who was after her powers and even threatening to kill her kids. Her fake kids, but still, they're real to her. And White Vision being sent in to kill her, but her new Vision attacking him. And by the way, the CGI, amazing. Really reminded me of Man of Steel, the way these two fought. That was great. And the cool thing is, Vision managed to arrange a conversation between him and White Vision. Basically told him, well, if your objective is to kill the Vision, you should kill yourself, because technically you're the real Vision. So he was able to bring back all the memories of the old Vision, and he realized that he is the Vision, and then he just fucked off. I don't know if he still has the Vision's personality, but he definitely has his memories. And this is where it got really trippy, because Wanda fought Agatha, and Agatha unplugged all the people of Westview who blamed her. Like, Wanda's sort of the villain. She helped them against their will, and she was really sad about that. But she also managed to overpower Agatha and became full-on Scarlet Witch near the end. And when she rocked that costume, I was like, that's awesome. It's awesome. And she basically punished her. Like, she turned her into the nosy neighbor for good. Only letdown was Quicksilver. Like, Quicksilver was taking Monica Rambeau hostage. We found out that he was just a puppet of Agatha, and his real name was Boner. I was like, oh, it's just a dick joke. But then again, there is still the theory out there that it can still be Quicksilver, because he still had these abilities. And Jimmy Woo was talking about a person in the witness protection program that nobody knew, and he was trapped inside Westview. So maybe it is Quicksilver, maybe it is Peter. So I wouldn't shrug that off yet, to be honest. To be 100% honest, it could still be Peter Maximoff. And this is the hard part. Wanda realizing that she has to give it all up now, and she had to say goodbye to her family. Like, when Vision, first of all, I loved that great imagery when Vision, Wanda, and her kids were basically a family of superheroes in their superhero pose. Like, that was straight out of The Incredibles. Again, so many movie references, like when she threw a car on Agatha and there were only her boots to be seen, something like something out of The Wizard of Oz. That was great. And near the end, they had to say goodbye. Wanda had to say goodbye to everyone. She put her kids literally to sleep, which was heart-wrenching. And then she had to say goodbye to Vision once again. And he asked her, "What am I even?" She's like, "You're the part of the Infinity Stone inside of me. You're my hope, you're my sadness, my grief, but above all else, you're my love." And I'm like, wow, I mean, that's cheesy dialogue, but it's done so well. I really felt something. And Vision started to cry. It made me think of Terminator. I don't know why you cry, but it's something I can never do. And yeah, then he just vanishes. And Wanda fucks off because everyone assumes she's the villain. Like, those townspeople will never forgive her. Hayward is now in prison thanks to Darcy, Jimmy, and Monica. And then we got two post-credit sequences. The first one is Monica being approached by a Skrull. And I guess she was sent by Captain Marvel to help a former assistant of Captain Marvel up there in space, which has to be Nick Fury, because last time we've seen him, he was up there. And the second scene is Wanda at a cabin that really reminded me of The Incredible Hulk, the first film with Edward Norton, when he was at a cabin trying to control his powers. which is what she's trying to do. So we see her doing this sort of astral projection thing that Doctor Strange used to do, and her projection looks like the Scarlet Witch again, and she has the Darkhold, like this evil book that you're not supposed to fuck with, but she is fucking with it, and she's hearing her kids. So I think, yeah, the door is still open for the multiverse. She's probably gonna try to find her kids and bring them back, which is gonna lead into Doctor Strange. All in all, I gotta say, I love the show. I thought it was super creative. It was something new, something needed for Marvel. It was genre bending. They did the comedy thing so well. But above all else, it focused on character. I know that there were a lot of people that were disappointed that their fan theories didn't come true. And I hear you. And there were some red herrings, most prominently Quicksilver and Monica's ominous contact. But other than that, I loved it, man. I loved that this brought Marvel back to a personal, great genre storytelling. Like, I cared about Vision, I cared about Wanda. These were my two leads. It didn't have to lead into so many different Marvel properties and crossovers. No, it was just that story, and it was told so well, so new, so fresh. Elizabeth Olsen deserves an Emmy at least. Like, that was the best acting I've ever seen in any of the MCU movies. And she is now, hands down, my favorite character. But I've also started to love Vision way more than I did in the past. These two really grew on me. I love their romance, which is weird, but they just did it so right. Like, in an age where they tried to tell us that Kylo Ren and Rey have a thing is romantic. No, this is really romantic. The action in the finale was on point. It was typical Marvel, which, again, is insane because this is a TV show and it was movie-like level, similar to The Mandalorian, which felt like a theatrical release. The structure, the mystery, the characters, the mythology, all of it worked to a T. This is now probably my favorite MCU project, mainly because it brought it back to a character-driven level and a genre-specific level, which is something that I've been missing lately in the MCU. Only worries I got is that we're now expecting the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which looks like your typical buddy cop kind of show. And I'm like, yeah, this is business as usual. I don't think that you should go back to business as usual after giving us something that creative. So WandaVision absolutely gets the gold medal. I'm in love with the show. I intend to watch it again. Like, I want to binge it all in one day because it's just that good. So, did you like it? Did you hate it? What did you hate? What did you like? Let me know in the comment section below. And thank you guys, as always, for watching. If you like what you see here and you want to see more, then just subscribe.